Hey everybody, today is February 15th and we're getting close to the 1 year mark or anniversary or whatever you want to call it of the Russian special military operations in Ukraine. And Joe Biden is actually planning to visit Poland. I think, if I am not mistaken, that Zelensky as well is going to be there. Now my computer is fucking up here, but yeah. It says here on CNN that Biden is to visit Poland around Ukraine war anniversary. And let's see here. He's gonna meet Andrzej Duda. And yeah. And it says that Zelensky is preparing for an expected Russian offensive in the spring. And I have argued that the offensive is already ongoing. But the reason why I wanted to bring up the visit to Poland is because, once again, the Belarusian intelligence services as well as government has warned us about an imminent, perhaps an attack on Belarus by Poland, right? As well as the what do you call it? The absorption of Galicia, that is to say Western Ukraine, which is basically Banderite land, but this was traditionally a part of Poland back in the day. Whether this is going to happen or not it can't be confirmed. I don't know, but it is speculated by many that this will happen in basically the 1 year anniversary of this war, and that is perhaps the 24th or 25th of February. And you have to also remember that there is 150,000 stationed Russian troops in Belarus. This war might spread across the world in many different ways. We saw the drone attack in Iran, and we saw as well as the tweet by the Ukrainian defense minister, and the Iranian government summoned the Ukrainian ambassador for demanding answers, basically. Many speculate that Israel was doing Ukraine basically a favor by doing this, right? Because Israel have had a they've had a common, not a common, but like they've done this very often, right? Where they have killed or assassinated scientists and engineers and so forth inside Iran by using proxies, mainly the Mujahideen Khalq or the MEK. So what I would like to say to people is, like, keep an eye open about Belarus. We can go through a article. This is a very pro-EU article. It's Euractiv. And it says here, Belarus says Poland closing border, crossing point is catastrophic. And this was from 10th of February, actually, 5 days ago. Belarus on Friday slammed the decision by Poland to close a border checkpoint between the two countries as catastrophic, saying it could lead to a collapse on both sides of the border. Poland said on Thursday, citing security concerns, it would close a key border crossing into Belarus at Bobrowinki, starting at 12 p.m. local time on Friday, driving already hostile relations between the two countries to a new low. Minsk criticized the decision on Thursday, but went further in a statement on Friday, calling the move irrational and dangerous. The actions of the Polish authorities could lead to a collapse on both sides of the border, Belarus Border Committee said in a statement shared on social media. Poland has become a key refuge for opponents of President Alexander Lukashenko, and Warsaw has become one of Kiev's staunchest supporters since Belarus' main ally, Russia, invaded Ukraine in February 2022. After the closure comes into force, only 2 of 6 major land crossing points along the two countries' 400-kilometer or 249-mile border will be open, Belarus border forces said in a statement. With the closure of another Polish checkpoint, the situation will become catastrophic, Belarus border force added, pointing to an already existing long lines at border crossings. The load on the remaining 2 checkpoints will critically increase. Minsk also said it believed the decision was purposefully designed to further aggravate the situation at the border and limit citizens' travel. In 2021, Belarus orchestrated an arrival of thousands of migrants via airlines to Minsk and helped them reach the Polish border in what was seen as an attempt to destabilize this country and the EU. Hey, the thing is like this. Either this visit is a plan. They're trying to plan some sort of invasion of Belarus, or it's just another orchestrated, show where the United States and Poland and, give a bunch of promises and new, weapons packages to Ukraine and, the whole shebang that they always do, right? Either way, we have to keep an eye out on the developments that are going on there. In fact, the Polish government, if it was Duda himself, let's see here. It says here that, yes, it was actually Poland's President of Poland, Duda, warns that Putin may win. Let's see the whole article. Republic World. Al-Mayadin as well talked about it. If Ukraine doesn't get their weapons, right? Problem is that the weapons that they're sending are not enough anyway. So this is an Indian or South Asian website. But nonetheless, it says here, Polish President Duda warns Putin may win if allies don't rush weapons to Ukraine. Russians do not have the modern military infrastructure, but they do have people, Duda warned in an interview with the French newspaper Le Figaro. And this shows that these European politicians, like their analysis of Russia is still rooted in the 1990s. They still say that Russia has a primitive military, that they are, unsophisticated. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Russia can't make mistakes. They have made mistakes. But the Russian military is extremely well trained. Russia isn't just fighting Ukraine; it's fighting all of NATO. There's a lot of mercenaries from Poland, among many other places, fighting in Ukraine as we're speaking. The Americans have given billions, 40 plus billion, maybe even more than in weapons packages, right, to Ukraine. And yes, they were a game changer during the early summer, and they managed to take Kharkiv and Kherson. But they didn't really manage to actually annihilate or kill a lot of Russian soldiers in that process. In fact, a lot of especially the Kherson retreat, was a very tactical, well-planned retreat. Kharkiv, yes, it was maybe not as planned, but they still managed to fight off and fend against the Ukrainian army. And the Western media, obviously, they don't like to talk about the fact that during these offensives, Ukraine lost thousands of soldiers. I think the Kherson offensive alone, they lost 9,500 army troops. So, and one thing we get confused here in the West, that this is a war of territory. The territory is important, but it is not as important as maintaining your lives for the the soldiers' lives. It's a war of attrition. So let's keep that in mind. But anyway, Poland's President Andrzej Duda, who accused Russia's President Vladimir Putin of behaving like a tyrant and a colonialist by invading Ukraine. That's funny because Poland participated in the illegal invasion of Iraq, but nonetheless, on Saturday said that the authoritarian leader may win the war if Kiev does not urgently receive military equipment and aid that it needs. Duda had earlier predicted that Russia's forces, who are still very strong, may be preparing a new offensive in Ukraine within months, and that Kiev needed immediate additional support, including long-range missiles and battle tanks. Like I said, I think that the Russian offensive is already ongoing, but here's the thing. The Russian government and the Russian military staff has never said that we're going to launch a offensive. They just keep grinding down the Ukrainian army, and that's it. The strategic ambiguity that the Russians have against the West is driving them insane, right? They just keep speculating back and forth. I don't know how many times that these Western media outlets and politicians and military people have said that Russia is going to run out of missiles. No, it's not. Russia is one of the largest military exporters in the world. And they have a huge military capacity, right? German party suggests realistic approach to war. Truce. Duda's statements were made as he simultaneously ruled out the possibility of delivering fighter jets to Ukraine, adding that such a decision will be taken collectively by all NATO members. And we talked about the F-16s in Romania, the Airspace magazine or website. I talked about this in my last video about the wonder weapons. It took the Romanians 10 years, a decade, to get used to F-16s. I find it ridiculous that they are gonna, they think that Ukrainian pilots are just overnight, they're just gonna get used to Western equipment like it was like G.I. Joe or something. That's not the case. The Polish president hinted that his country only has 50 US manufactured F-16 aircrafts that are not sufficient for his own country amid the escalating security situation. In a staunch take, member of the NATO Germany's left party, Sarah Wagenknecht, told Die Welt newspaper that instead of weapons, a truce shall be negotiated with Russia's President Vladimir Putin. A more realistic approach would be to declare the neutral status of Ukraine, declare a demilitarized zone in a contested regions, and ink the referendums on territorial affiliation, German lawmakers suggested. If such a proposal had been made and Russian President Vladimir Putin would have refused to even discuss it, then it would be possible to talk about a different path. But how can you say that Russians do not want negotiations if such an offer is not even on the table? One member of the left party, Sarah Wagenknecht, told Die Welt. Her remarks came as Berlin approved arms manufacturer Rheinmetall's plan to deliver 88 Leopard 1s to Ukraine and send Leopard 2 MBTs. Well, I mean, it's a sexy idea. the whole negotiation thing. It's that the problem is that the Russians will never trust the Americans and the Europeans ever again. After these statements by Angela Merkel and François Hollande, Petro Poroshenko, now the former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali. I mean, they have all come out and said that basically that the Minsk Accords were nothing but a sham. It was a way to trick Russia to buy time so they can just pump in arms and build up the Ukrainian army. I don't see why Russia should negotiate with the West, especially since they have the upper hand in this war. In fact, there was one article, I saw this, I don't know if it was Gonzalo Lira or Brian Baraletich, that talked about William Burns heading to Russia and trying to get some sort of peace deal from the Russians regarding Ukraine, and the Russians rejected it. We can search it up right now after we've read this article, because the Russians said, we're going to win this war anyway. I think the Americans have denied this, but we can see if we can find the article. So, in a more supportive stance, just a month into the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Poland had insisted on sending Soviet-era MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine through the United States Ramstein Air Base in Germany. This had raised serious concerns for the entire NATO alliance. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby at the time had rejected the prospect of supplying jets from the US NATO base, arguing that it may lead to direct confrontation as US warplanes flying into airspace that is contested with Russia over Ukraine raises serious concerns for the entire NATO alliance. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky had been making appeals for sending fighter jets to help fend off invading Russian troops' assault on Ukrainian soil and attack the enemy positions. Well, here's the problem. You can send all the jets that you want. Besides the whole, training aspect, there's also the fact that Russia has probably the best anti-air defense system in the world, which is the S-400, 500, even the 300 is pretty good. These are extremely good anti-aircraft systems. So any airplane you send in there, it's going to be destroyed. So yeah, send them all you want. And I also forgot to say that besides like the whole Iran and Belarus issue, as well as Poland, because Poland seems to become the next proxy against Russia, right? You also have the 3 Baltic states, the midget states, as we call them. And the fact that Finland and Sweden is trying to show their muscles against the Russians. The Russians built, or are in the process of building, I don't know if they finished it, a military base on its western front, which is close to Finland and Sweden, because, there were talks about America putting, or being allowed to put their, ballistic missiles or robots or whatever. And obviously the Russians fear that they're going to put nuclear weapons there. It wouldn't surprise me if the Swedes and the Finns would allow this, since we are puppet states of the American empire, basically. We do as they say. If they tell us to jump, we jump. And if they tell us to bite or bark, we do the same. So, we might see if we can find the, let's see here, if we can find that article. The Russians were the ones who denied this deal, and it was and Reuters. Many news outlets have actually spoken about this. Says here, Russia rejects reports that the U.S. offered Moscow secret Ukraine peace plan. This is a paywall on this. See if we can find another one. Let's see. What Russia said on report that What Russia said on report that U.S. offered secret Ukraine peace plan. Asked if William Burns had traveled to Moscow or put forward a plan that involved Ukraine ceding 20% of its territory, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters the whole report is a hoax. Yeah, then it's a hoax, probably. The Kremlin on Friday rejected as a hoax media reports that U.S. CIA Director William Burns had traveled to Moscow with a secret peace proposal that involved Ukraine ceding a fifth of its territory to Russia. The Swiss newspaper New Zürcher Zeitung's report said Mr. Burns had made a secret trip to Moscow last month to put forward the plan on behalf of the White House. Has also been dismissed by Washington. Okay, so I was partially right. Both of them have rejected this report. Asked whether William Burns had traveled to Moscow or put forward a plan that involved Ukraine ceding 20% of its territory, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters the whole report is a hoax. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's about it. I have been busy with work. That's why some days I don't work and some days I have a lot of work, so my schedule can be a little bit crazy sometimes, but that's how it is in this gig economy, I guess. I appreciate you guys. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss any videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.